Okay, thank you all for joining me today for a presentation on an impact of post-secondary practices, specifically with Tennessee Promise recipients. This will be pertinent to our district for a couple of reasons. Obviously, as a high-poverty rural district, we struggle to find successful ways to keep our kids, our graduates, getting into college and staying in college. So hopefully we can learn a little bit that will help our students and the students across the state. So just thinking first, why does college matter? There's a lot of reasons why college matters now, and if you think back to 10 or so years ago when we went through a recession, there have been some studies to see that young adults with a college degree, even an associate's degree, are much more likely to get and keep a job than individuals who do not have anything above a high school diploma. A Georgetown study looked at this and saw that young adults and older adults that had no more than a high school diploma saw no growth among well-paying jobs with benefits, where individuals with at least a 2-year college degree have seen continuous growth in employment opportunities, especially those with full-time benefits. So in Tennessee specifically, Governor Bill Haslam has taken this initiative to heart and started his Drive to 55 initiative. And that Drive to 55 initiative has a goal for 55% of Tennesseans to be equipped with a college degree or certificate by the year 2025. So one way Governor Haslam is trying to support this initiative is with the Tennessee Promise. And what the Tennessee Promise is a scholarship program for all Tennessee high school graduates to community college or technical schools. So that means any individual who graduates from high school in the state of Tennessee that can get accepted into a community college or a technical school can go tuition free. There's no income requirements, there are no grade requirements. All that a student has to do or a graduate has to do is complete their FAFSA by the established deadline, complete 8 hours of community service, and they do have to be assigned to a mentor who will work with them throughout the application process. Tennessee Promise is a last dollar scholarship, and what that means is that if a student receives other scholarships or a Hope Scholarship or a Pell Grant or a Perkins Grant, they can't double dip with the Tennessee Promise. It will only pay for tuition that is not paid by another scholarship, can't be taken in as a cash receipt, or cannot cover books, room and board, or other expenses related to college. The purpose of this study is to see what's happening with our college enrollment and retention rates since the inception of the Tennessee Promise. So I'm going to look at what enrollment rates were for community college in Tennessee, specifically the 13 community colleges that are eligible for Tennessee Promise recipients, and see what they look like before Tennessee Promise happened and see what they look like now. Because I have a theory that while we're probably enrolling more students in college since we started the Tennessee Promise program, perhaps they are not staying in college. Tuition cost is one barrier to attending college for students, but is certainly not the only barrier. Students who come from poverty often have a lot of other challenges to get through to try to successfully complete a college degree. Living expenses is probably the greatest one, but also family obligations, low priority placed on earning an education, and academic ill-preparedness. So with this study, I will look at the community colleges that have seen the best retention rates since the Tennessee Promise started, and those that have seen the lowest retention rates. Possibly, I will also look at school districts that have had the best success rates and the lowest success rates to try to identify some best practices that we can share across the state to improve chances for our high-risk students. So the two research questions that will be addressed are: how has the Tennessee Promise Scholarship Program impacted community college enrollment and retention rates? And what secondary and post-secondary practices show evidence of positive impact to community college success rates. You guys feel free to stop with any questions you have throughout this presentation. The key terms that will be defined in this process will be the Tennessee Promise, which we've already talked about, college readiness, and typically college readiness is defined as a student who has made certain scores on the ACT. By definition, a college-ready student is an academically prepared student ready for post-secondary education or training without the need for remedial coursework. Now, as y'all know, the gauge for that, at least in the state of Tennessee, is the ACT benchmarks. So if a student achieves a certain score on the ACT, then he or she is considered to be college-ready and does not have to take remedial coursework. If they did not achieve a certain score on the ACT, in math and English, then they will have to take remedial coursework, which they have to pay for, and they will not earn credits for. That can be a major issue with student success in college. If they feel like they're paying for classes that are difficult and they're not earning credits for it, it can be a huge discouraging issue for students, especially if they're not being pushed from their home. Economically disadvantaged students is another term we will use a lot. This is how we're defining at risk. Pre-K-12 students who are eligible for the National School Lunch Program as high school students through direct certification or income eligibility are considered economically disadvantaged. Income eligibility means they live at or below 130% of the national poverty line to receive a free lunch, and between 130 and 180% of the national poverty line for reduced price lunch. So any student who receives a free or reduced price lunch is considered economically disadvantaged. Once they get into college, they are determined to be economically disadvantaged if they are eligible for a Pell Grant. Post-secondary success rates, these are students, this is defined as student retention in post-secondary institutions. Looking at some of the literature that's already been published on this topic, characteristics of a successful college student. There have been a lot of studies to see what works for students who are in college to keep them there. And one of the common terms is persistence. Persistence is grit, determination, staying with the course even when things are hard. Effective advising has been considered has been proven to be a successful practice, and that means not just I have an advisor who tells me what classes to take, but an advisor who is effectively engaged and invested in my education. College preparation in high school, that seems obvious, but it's probably an issue for districts who are underperforming, which often high poverty districts are. Tutoring, successful tutoring, particularly in math, has shown to be an effective practice. And then if a student gets through their freshman year completing all the credits they've attempted and with a decent GPA, they're more likely to see the college process all the way through to graduation. Some of those seem obvious, but if you want to look at factors contributing to success, these are some good ones. The theoretical concept behind this study has to do with Vroom's expectancy theory. And if you're not familiar with it, there are 3 tiers to it, or 3 indicators. The expectancy means increased effort will lead to increased performance. So someone who has this theory believes that if I work harder, then I'm going to perform better. Instrumentality, belief that if one performs well, a valued outcome will be received. That means the hard work I'm putting into this is worth the time, it's worth the effort, it's worth the sacrifice because I value the outcome that I'm going to get to. And then valence is the importance placed on the expected outcome. And this is something we have to look at often with students who come from poverty, is education is not necessarily considered to be important. So that's something that we as a school district and community college as a community within themselves need to work on, showing students that there is value to be placed on earning a college degree. Methodology, there are 3 data sources that will be used for this research. The Tennessee Higher Education Commission produces reports on college enrollment, college retention, grants and scholarships earned by students or awarded to students, and then it also disaggregates that information for students who are economically disadvantaged. So it'll be a great data source for this study. The Tennessee Promise also produces data on the students who've qualified for the Tennessee Promise, accepted the Tennessee Promise, used the Tennessee Promise, and kept the Tennessee Promise. So that will be helpful information to see how much of a factor that actual grant or that scholarship has in keeping students in college. And then finally, the Student Clearinghouse is a data source that follows students through their college and community college, university, and technical college paths throughout their entire college career. There will be surveys and interviews conducted when schools are identified as high-performing or low-performing based on their retention rates. Surveys and interviews will be conducted with admission staff to see what supports are in place. There will be an artifact review to see if freshmen in particular are getting advisement, are getting tutoring, are getting some type of mentoring or relationship building within the school community. Peer debriefing, that's what you guys are part of. As informed peers in this process, I invite you to give me feedback to see what needs to be done differently to make sure that I don't have any bias and that I don't have any preconceived ideas about what I'm going to find. And then there will be a data triangulation between the secondary institutions, the post-secondary institutions, and the Tennessee Promise data. The sampling for survey participants will be based on criteria that they meet. It will be individuals who have knowledge of admissions processes and student supports that are in existence in the schools that are selected. Delimitations include the fact that participants will be selected only based on certain criteria. It won't be a wide open selection process, and there will be limitations placed on the feedback because people who are participating will be answering questions based on their personal experiences, their personal knowledge, and in some cases their personal opinions. So that can be a factor when thinking about the objectivity of their answers. The desired outcomes are obviously to find some things that can help our kids and kids across the state be more successful at becoming a college student and a college graduate. We know that a college degree will be helpful to most young adults as they enter the workforce. So we want to do our part to supplement what they're getting from home and what they're not getting from home to make sure they have all the tools they need to be successful. Hopefully a list of best practices can be put together to share with high schools and with community colleges to improve this process for many students. And obviously there are plenty of references on the literature behind this, and looking at moving forward, we will keep learning from the people who have done the work before us. You guys have any questions? Thanks so much for participating today.